Just kind of do a dummy test and see. Checking tube now.
John, what time you have a plan as to how long you're going for, or?
I usually try and stick within an hour, but
okay, cool.
but we could, you know.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. But I have time to flex if we go a little over, you know, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
StreamYard. I had to check out the StreamYard, man. Looking good. So you could put you set up all this for yourself, the countdown and everything.
Yeah, you could do all that for yourself.
And like the YouTube logos and stuff, you had to do that.
Friday. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was through the service or you?
Through me.
Okay.
Yeah. I had to design all the templates and thing and put that.
Okay, cool.
But I find it easier. It's more like I could use OBS, but OBS a little more tech savvy. I need to be a little more tech savvy to do OBS.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean I could do it, but my computer need a little more specs right now to handle certain programs.
Okay.
So
now I could share my screen and thing here too. What?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're on Chrome, I think you could share screen better because you could get to hear audio.
Yeah, I am on Chrome actually. Yeah. That's what I've been doing with my classes too. Like once you use it, can we do it in Google Classroom?
Mm-hmm.
And once you share from the tab again, the audio, everything clear.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for music, teaching music, that I had to do that.
Definitely. I have some courses. Courses I want to do, but the music sharing thing.
Right. I am always studying to do some study. Well, before this thing happened, I was looking at doing a master's, but now I'm not so sure. Like I wanted to go and do it in person somewhere, like do further more music studies. But now it's like everything switched online.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what I want, or if that worth the investment right now. And things too shaky, like things just too uncertain.
Too very uncertain.
Yeah, I would just cool it for now.
Yeah. So we're almost to the hour, 1 minute to the hour, so we're good.
Yeah, man.
Let's see if I get them questions going.
Cool, no pressure. You just chilling.
Yeah.
I not seeing you again though. That's
you not see me?
No, I not seeing you.
I seen the
the
screen.
The main yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So you go live. Boom. All right. So we inside.
Yo.
So as you seen.
I'm good, man. Doing pretty well. But today is kind of a slow day. I don't know the weather. I'm kind of, in a lazy mood.
Okay. I kind of like what I was like this because I was in a lazy mood.
So you work better in this kind of.
Yeah, I work better. I hate the heat. I hate the heat. I hate. Like yesterday was terribly hot.
Mm,
It was terribly hot, so I prefer this kind of temperature. Um,
yeah,
I don't do too cold and I don't do too hot. Um,
yeah.
so this weather pretty decent. I
Okay.
prefer I prefer
Rainy or just overcast? What do you think?
rainy and overcast and rainy. Once I inside,
When's it exactly? Is it
once I
today?
inside,
Yeah.
I get catching some rain in Tunapuna earlier, and
Right.
it was going on flood, but you know, but
If it inside is a cool scene. But I had to make some turns today, so that was kind of not well. I got out before rain started to fall. It fell for a while. But my dad was mentioning something, and it's true, something I kind of observed. You didn't realize or you find nowadays it don't really rain the way it used to rain when you was younger. Like we was talking about rainy season back in the day.
I just
Compare.
I just try and think about it, but I can't remember though. Like I can't remember. I couldn't think. I remember how it used to
Well,
rain before.
well, that's the next weird thing. I don't know if it's as a child, you just remember things differently.
Yeah. So
But till,
that is actually happening a lot. We just I think in perspectives of how he was as a child.
right.
Because a lot of people say things like, long time was good, or it was hard, wasn't so hard, long time. But we was a child, we was children, like we didn't know. Like
Yeah, everything.
everything in the perspective of our parents, sometimes maybe it was hard for them at the time. So sometimes it
True.
just depends on inflation
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. But I don't know how much better rain season was long time. I can't
For
remember.
me, for me, I think it used to be way worse. Like it used to rain real hard, and like it's almost like whole day rain falling, for several days. But I just say your memory isn't
What
very reliable
reliable in this case?
as you get older. And I was looking at something that was explaining like how memory works now, boy, and it's crazy because eventually you don't actually once you create
Remember.
that, you don't actually remember. You just remember
I, I,
the memory.
But
And every
I think I
yeah,
was watching the same show. There's one of those
yeah,
those documentary on Netflix, and I was talking about
yeah.
memory, and they
I thought
say
that was interesting.
sometimes you don't remember the exact same thing. So sometimes
No,
you might be recalling a memory that you think you remember, and sometimes it's not exactly how it happened.
yeah, because you remember the memory of that memory, and every time you
Mhm.
recall it, you
It's something
remember
different.
the last time you remember it, and it has changed. It's true, and
Yeah,
your details just get foggy. Like it's weird because before I could remember certain things clear as day about like Christmas, in my grandmother house, things like. But now it's like the details just get real foggy, and I kind of
foggy.
fill in the blanks. Maybe it's because I'm approaching 30 years, starting to feel a little old. Even though
So when
people tell me I'm young still.
yeah, young still because I approaching 50. Well, I was
Wow.
approaching. I got distance from 50 still, but
Okay.
I just crossed the 40 threshold, so
Right.
the memory a little
Yeah.
foggy.
Yeah, time to go, man. Yeah, time to
I have
go.
time to go. So, but yeah, the memory is a weird thing. But yeah, I mean, to me, I think these days the release is not as dread as it used to be. And I
Yeah.
think they said that because the hurricane season now kind of on a lull now.
Yeah.
The hurricane season on a kind of a lull. So usually we'd have more more hurricanes around this time, which
Yeah.
is which is kind of a blessing in the sense that with all the shit going on,
Yeah.
um, you don't want to have too much thing going on. So hurricane and a pandemic is kind of too much to deal with some countries. You know,
Correct.
like
Yeah.
up the islands, like we had to really worry about Haiti around this time because they already have a problem with the financial, you know,
Yeah.
stuff that they're going through, and plus to deal with a pandemic and to deal with a hurricane at this time could be
Hurricane.
a real scene, But
Yeah.
yeah, let's start off the ball are
Sure.
rolling.
Yeah, man.
So I as an artist or as a creative, there's usually do these interviews, and it's usually the same type questions.
Yeah.
And I try to not be so cliched in the questions, um,
Sure.
because I think a lot of people need to know about the artist. We
Right.
always come and we talk about the music, and we go talk about the music, but I want to find out a little more about who Adan Hagley is now. You know,
Sure.
like who are you outside of the music? So
Mm.
first question, give me a description of who you is. I mean, not cliched one, but you could just give me describe who Adan Hagley is in its entirety.
Well, boy, that's a complex question there. But for me, I would say I'm a pretty laid back, humble person. I, I I come from very humble beginnings, growing up in Point Fortin, in my grandmother's house behind the market, right?
Interesting. I think I know what the
Yeah,
market is.
yeah, Point
I think I
Fortin market, behind the market where my grandmother lives. Um, and I would have grown up in a house, always surrounded by family. I grew up with my grandmothers, some of my cousins, um, aunts, you know. I actually grew up in a house with mainly women, which is also another thing that had a great impact on me.
mm-hmm.
And well, I'm an only child, so people by the time they hear only child, they say, "Oh God, he's spoiled
Spoil.
kid," which I don't deny, which is true. But I always tell people, I kind of got the best of both worlds because I would have been an only child, but I grew up around cousins my age.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I spoiled, but I wasn't lonely in that sense because I would have been surrounded by family and surrounded by people my age. I have cousins who were born the same year as me. So I think I got the best of both worlds. I guess spoiled. I didn't have, I wasn't lonely, but
Mm-hmm.
and
Understand.
very young, um, the music would have came into the scene because I, w- I come from a family that has always been around music. Maybe not where musicians. A lot of musicians come out of the family, but
Mm-hmm.
always definitely involved in music. My grandfather, who on my mother's side, who died before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been a very avid musician, from what I understand, playing everything, guitar, singing, piano. And later on, once I got into jazz, found out, of course, he had a very huge jazz record collection. These are things
Mm-hmm.
you find out after the fact, It's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Grandfather was, well, I mean, which isn't strange because I guess jazz was very popular back
Popular
then.
back then. Yeah. So.
But he was very serious about it. You couldn't touch his records. You couldn't go wrong. The man
Mm-hmm.
player, you know. And all of my uncles and aunts would have been involved in pan in some shape or form, as a lot of people would have been. But I think, definitely as they got older, because there's a whole stigma with pan too, I guess, when they were younger. But as they got older, definitely they would have been involved in pans. I have a lot of uncles. My uncle, well, one in particular who is very much pan involved in pan, and the rest of them would have been exposed to music and pan in some way. I had a cousin, an older cousin, who I didn't really get to know well. He
Mm-hmm.
passed away now, but he was a very talented musician,
Mm-hmm.
So, um, It's in the blood. And then on my father's side, my grandmother, who I also did not know, and it's so weird, like the ones who were the musically inclined, I didn't have the pleasure of interacting with. She was a music teacher,
Mm-hmm.
so she would have taught music in Point 14. And again, I exposed each other. From what I understand, they had a piano in the house.
Mm-hmm.
All these things that I didn't get to experience, but it's there.
So all these things kind of develop who Adan is at some
Yeah,
points. Kind of
at
merge
some
to.
point, for me, even my interest in music started young because again, I would now have all these cousins around the house who all getting involved in music in some way. It started with piano. We had a little toy piano in the back.
Well, actually, that was my next question. What made you decide that piano was the instrument of choice? What was the epiphany that made?
Well, honestly, I just always tell people I don't feel like I'm a pianist in my head,
Okay.
but I haven't really ventured, at least professionally, into other instruments. But I have dabbled in other instruments. But of course, in them days, everybody had to do piano lessons. That was just the
Okay.
standard.
That was the standard
When you
lesson.
when you talk to your parents in those days, in order to be cultured and be exposed to other things, that was the thing. You go for piano lessons. And I think a lot of that generation would have been exposed to piano in some shape, whether it's you went for one lesson at least. It was just something that people did. So I would have followed along that line. My older cousins would have been very much involved. Of course, they involved. I want to be involved. And I think for me, what always drove me was a bit of somewhat of a competitiveness, I would say. I had my older cousin Jason, who I looked up to because I didn't have siblings, so I would have looked up to him. I don't know if Jason is watching, but I sent out the link. Maybe he's watching. I always looked up to my cousin. He would have been the older one, involved in music, involved in sports. He was very social. So I always tell them I consider those my cousins who are my age. I consider them my brothers and sisters because I didn't have that.
You didn't
You
have
know.
brothers and sisters.
So
Okay.
as much as they're my first cousins, they're my brother. As much as how I look at it, and I would have looked up to them, and he was always very talented in that sense. So I use that as a driving force then. And it's weird that. And I would have been, I would have been the youngest of them. And there's a theory in music or a trend that you see a lot with musicians that grow up in musical families. That not to say that I'm a prodigy because I'm not. I'm the furthest thing from that.
Well, as I said in the beginning, you're kind of humble. So I mean, if he's a prodigy, he's a
Nah,
prodigy. He's a
nah.
prodigy.
I would never put myself in that category. I'll explain why after. But definitely growing up in that environment, especially when there's a trend there when you're the youngest tends to stand out in a lot of ways. Look at the Jackson 5, look at
Joshua Salcedo.
aliens, yeah. Look at these aliens,
Yeah.
You look at I read Victor Wooten's book and he talked about from the time he was able to sit up, they put a bass in his hand, and he grew up in an environment where all of his brothers played instruments. So it just was like second nature. And even when I was studying music education, they talked about that. There's an approach called the Suzuki approach method, where they show you that the best way is to have the child mimic or mirror the family environment is important. So you would have not just the child learning, but the parents learning. So when they see, when you practice, it becomes a family thing where it's like, okay, mommy is doing this, daddy is doing this, so I will do it too. So there's that, that drive. You look up to your siblings, to your family members to say, well, hey, I want to do that. So it's not a task. It was never.
It was never like a burden to say,
It
well,
was never a burden. It's just,
you felt there's something that you had to do.
Yeah, I just want to do it. It
Yeah.
creates that drive when you
Mm.
seeing everybody else doing it.
Doing it.
It becomes easier. So that's one way, and indirectly, without me knowing it, it kind of drove me in that direction to the point
Mm.
that I mean, I ended up being the one kind of sticking with the music,
Yeah.
the performing. You
Performance
know,
part. Yeah.
everybody else did it, but they never did it as a professional musician. So again, it might be true. The theory might be true that
The youngest
the
kind of.
youngest, yeah, it creates that drive. I don't know.
All right. But so like you reach the point. Okay, I'm doing piano. I'm pursuing it professionally. Why Berkeley? I mean, it's an easy question, but
Well, well, again, to go back to why I said I never really considered myself a prodigy. I always had to fight to get to where I wanted to be. It never really
mhm,
came easy. It just was something that I liked, you know.
mhm,
So I always looked up to my cousins and others as more talented than me. Maybe that's just the way how I view myself.
mhm.
But I never really saw myself in that light. Even when I started to take music more seriously, which would have been in secondary school, I started to kind of fall in and out of it. You start secondary school, there's a whole new shift.
It's a whole new
You
vibes.
start to study guilds, you start to do all kind of thing. It's like
A
so you're in
formative
and
years.
you're in and out. I started to get into jazz, strangely enough, earlier on with blues and stuff. I would have,
That was one of
started
the
to
questions I had coming up.
Yeah, it was weird. I started to get into blues. Like I remember my cousin playing a blues piece, and I
Hmm.
was like, I don't like this classical thing. I like that. So I started to harass my teacher, like, I want to do that. And she, of course, is like, Adan, okay, we could do that, but you need to focus on your foundation, your fundamentals,
Hmm. I was actually,
Eventually,
I
yeah.
was actually watching this video recently, and I think a couple of people posted it concerning classical and linked to white supremacy. But that's a whole different,
Well, we could talk
so
about, yeah, we could talk about
you
that
could
too.
that's later down. But
Yeah.
so describe yourself pre Berkeley and post Berkeley. Like, what was the journey like, and have it made you grown as a musician? Did it change you? Did it develop your musicianship? I was actually doing that course on Berkeley online
Online.
Coursera with
Right.
that probably one of my teachers, big dude, forget his name.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about George Russell.
Yeah, George Russell.
George Russell,
Actually,
yeah, he's a
I did
boss. Yeah.
I did a developing musicianship course one with him. I actually had to
Okay.
finish it. Yeah. So, what
Yeah.
describe yourself pre and post Berkeley?
Well, I didn't finish the first part of the question. In
Mm-hmm.
terms of why Berkeley, so I would have been exposed to a group of young musicians at Presidential College.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas that again, formative years, Form 3, 4, where they started to play. We had a little jazz ensemble, play for little events and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I was looking for something to do, and I started to get into it. And then we formed our own band, Circular Fifths. There's always joke about that. But that was real important formative years to me. We started gigging at that age, we started
Mm-hmm.
playing at graduation balls, Christmas dinners, little functions here and there. So that made me realize, hey, I could do this. I might be able to do this. Was I thinking being a full-time musician? No. Because of
Mm-hmm.
course at the time everybody pushing, sciences, go and do engineering. So my mind was still kind of there. But my close friend McKinney Joseph, he decided to audition for Berkeley. The drummer in the band, Vinny audition. He got in first.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't attend, but he got in through the interview. And then McKinney and I decided to audition around the same time. And around Form 6 is when I was like, yeah, I think this is as much as I was doing sciences in Form 6. I was down in that engineering, like, but
Mm-hmm.
I never it never really made sense to me. It never really like I was like, what is engineering? Like, what am I gonna do? Like,
I mean,
I always knew I wanted to do something that I was passionate about. Like, this is like, what is this? Like,
I
okay,
mean,
I can make money here, but
I mean, 11 point in doing engineering. I mean, it's kind of second nature in a sense.
Yeah, I guess so. That is a part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Where, they consider you bright, so they tell you, well, go and do sciences, go and it's like, but that's a whole next thing with the education system that I, have issues with. But
We could talk about all of that.
yeah, well, yeah, the way they streamline students. Actually, I was reading somebody made a statement about it recently in the news, right? About
Mm-hmm.
streamlining students and how negative it of an impact it has in terms of not
Mm-hmm.
allowing students to really experience things and
Mm-hmm.
decide what they want to do
To
and
do.
figure it out. Is they always constantly pushing in a certain direction. All right,
Mm-hmm.
you get these grades, all right, you go here. All right, you don't know it, all right, you do business and it's like it
Yeah.
especially with the arts, there's no
Mm.
room for it really.
Because in hindsight, because I too did sciences
Mm,
in secondary school, and in hindsight, I think I should have picked different subjects based on my life now, and I should have done probably more history and subjects like that because I'm always interested in learning about other cultures and trying to understand life from that perspective now. So I should have done literature and that kind of stuff like that. But if
yeah,
I knew if I look back now to why I would have made different choices,
yeah,
as what to study and why I would have done music.
yeah,
I never really did music through school.
yeah.
So stuff
I
like
mean,
that.
music at that time wasn't even really a subject offered at CXC and stuff
Mm,
yet,
yeah.
anyway. So it's only until then I decided I would audition. Because of them, I didn't even really know what I wanted to do. I just hearing all these things, all these big musicians going to Berkeley, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I want to try my hand. Did I think I was gonna get in? No, hell no. Um, but I started to really, that was my focus in Form 6. That's all I was really focused on. Of course, I always big up and shout out Ming. Ming
Mm-hmm.
was somebody that gave me guidance then and helped me, with my track and kind of give me some pointers and stuff. When I didn't have a teacher teaching me jazz. I was teaching myself.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube videos, books, and gave me some pointers. Didn't even know me. Didn't know who I was really. This
Sounds
this.
like
So yeah, that's
sounds like
Ming.
me. Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds like me.
invite me into his house and
Mm-hmm.
give me lessons. Never charged me anything. Never asked me anything.
Sounds
And
like
that really helped me. So I always big up Ming whenever he talks, on Facebook, and
yeah,
I
big up
I
me.
I will always big up Ming for that. And I try to be that same way now when people approach me. I
Mm-hmm.
always take that approach. Once you
Mm-hmm.
have an interest or somebody come and be like, hey, I want to go to Berkeley, I just always give them the advice. I will tell them as it is, but I will be encouraging because some people
Mm-hmm.
like to be very discouraging, which is an experience I had, which I will come to, where people very negative and very discouraging, about going, or I don't know, it's weird. Like people like to feel because they can't do it, they will
Mm-hmm.
discourage you now, or because it's difficult, they will tell you that boy, that real hard, I don't know. And you had to stick to what you want.
Mm-hmm.
I was accepted, into school. I didn't know how I was gonna pay for it, but I went and figured it out on the go. And yeah, it was challenging. Around that time is when it things changed for me though. That was when after I got in, that's when things became very strange, to put it lightly. Music it started to shift because there was all this pressure on going out there and performing and doing well and the cost of going there, and then everybody saying, boy, Berkeley real hard thing, it's real competitive, whatever. And all of a sudden, it as much as I tried to ignore those things, it did have an impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it moved from being a hobby to being a career, a job, like this serious thing. Where before it was just this is what I like to do. This is why
Mm-hmm. You want
24/7 was music, whole day listening thing,
mm-hmm.
analyzing music, playing, looking for gigs, and then it became like, yo, you need to do this, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like all this pressure all of a sudden, and that really kind of threw me off. Honestly, it threw me off. Going into Berkeley as good of an experience it was very challenging. You know, that first week, tears, literal tears. It's a
Because,
lot.
yeah, it's come like you leave secondary school where you was probably top of your class or whatever,
Yeah,
and
we talk
you
about that.
you
Big,
reach.
big fish in a small pond, and then you
Mm-hmm,
go into a bigger pond, and it's like,
mm-hmm,
okay, you thought you was something, but
mm-hmm,
this is the best of the best in the world, you
mm-hmm,
know. And as someone gave the analogy of going into a school like Berkeley is like trying to take a drink of water from a fire hose.
mm.
A
All
lot of
right.
information is thrown at you. Well, college in general, but
Yeah.
particularly a school like that is like literally sink or swim. Either sink or swim. Yeah, that's how to
Mm.
figure it out. Great experience. A lot of things I learned there that I still use today. All the lessons learned
So you would
there.
say it make you develop as a better musician.
Definitely push it. Like at least if you go, like if I could do the experience over, I
Mm-hmm.
would be with the mindset that I have now and the maturity that I have now. Think I would be a lot better because maturity does play a part in it. You know, for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was you get to leave the house, you're going out on your own. You know, new environment, city. You want to go and explore. You want to go and meet people. You want to
Mm-hmm.
you know, go wild, go parties, do all this kind of stuff. And it's like, honestly, you had a higher head on. You had a higher head on. You had to know what you're there about. I didn't understand how important networking was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I still do have a lot of net connects out there, um, you had to really do the research and find out who are the people up there
Yeah.
that you need to know. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
and there are people that do it that you know, but again, when I was there, I used to compare myself to people a lot, and I had to quickly realize, you know, it's not the best thing to do, and also everybody there is not starting from the same place. Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was my first experience with music school, first time being in America, first time experiencing having an actual jazz teacher, all of these things. Oh, these guys, this is their second university. All these guys went to music high schools,
Okay. Went to
studied,
creative
went to
schools
creative
like
art schools.
schools.
They
Yeah.
would have studied with George Benson and studied
Mm-hmm.
with like things that we don't have those opportunities. We
Yeah.
just don't. So I used to judge myself really hard. And then when I talk to some of the guys, like, why am I being so hard? This is literally my first time doing this. They have had those experiences already. As young as
Mm-hmm.
some of them were, they've been groomed from a young age. So it's like you can't be too hard on yourself. We don't have that kind of system here.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to push. I'm not saying no, you have to put yeah, I
Because
always
when I hear
go ahead.
people like Tupac or people like Black Thought went to creative art schools, or
Yeah.
even people like Mos Def went to creative art schools, and
Dave Chappelle.
so they have
Yeah,
that development from a certain age
yeah,
where they
they
are creative
understand the
mind.
arts.
They
They
they earn
understand the arts, not just their
mhm,
own field, but how it is connected to everything.
everything.
And that's
Hmm.
one of the things I learned as well. There is that I learned because we had to do visual arts and all of that too. You know, we
Hmm.
did all that stuff, and I was like, "Shit, okay, this is all connected. The arts is the arts. You know,
Hmm.
the same concepts and principles apply all around. You know, so definitely it formed. It was a baptism by fire.
Hmm.
A lot of people go there and don't do music after. It's actually quite common. The experience is very, demanding. I kind of went through that phase as well, where honestly, I felt like giving up music at a point because it's almost like, well, I don't see myself on that level, you know, because it's very competitive. And then you come back to Trinidad for the next part of the question, and it's like, well, what do I do now?
Well, but even after that experience, would you advise now people actually pursue higher education in music? Like, would you advise musicians now, knowing like the climate and knowing the music business? Would you, if somebody real good, would you still tell them, well, you need to get this degree? Now the experience is good, but
Yeah.
would you advise it being necessary in a sense?
That's a very difficult question there, boy John. before I would tell people yes,
Mm-hmm.
because of my experience. Now, especially right now, my advice would be, because we live in a global world now, we're not
Mm-hmm.
living in, everybody's connected. And there's so much information out there now that, and again, you see how the direction of the world has already moved into an online thing. I can pull up StreamYard and have a meeting with somebody in China, in
Mm-hmm.
Japan. And honestly, I'm not the price of the education system there now. It's very hard to justify the cost. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I was reading something talking about, the impact that this pandemic has had on the universities, and that they don't, one article was saying they don't see it going back in terms of the cost, because remember, this thing has been inflating, and every year the price goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And now people are realizing, wait, I could get the same degree, because they've had to switch to online. I could get the
Mm-hmm.
same degree online in my house for half the price.
Yeah, because
So
I
how are
my,
you? Mm,
my my dream at a certain age was to go full sail, and that's before I even get into engineering. And
right.
I always had like the booklets. I got the booklets
Yeah.
from
Mm.
a job fair, and
Oh,
I used
yeah,
to
that one.
read. I used to read that full sail book like it was, like a dictionary. Like I
Yeah,
always wanted to go full sail, but the price was so expensive I couldn't afford it.
yeah.
But now I could go on and learn anything I want
You
to
could take
online.
a course online. And the thing about it, you can do it that way, or honestly, with music, you need to find a good teacher. And
Mm-hmm.
those people can be or are available online now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the top musicians give lessons, Skype,
Mm-hmm.
online, whatever
Mm-hmm.
platform. You pay them online, transfer, PayPal, whatever,
But
and you
I
can book a lesson online.
but I mean the college experience is still a benefit as
Yeah,
well.
the college
The
experience.
networking, the parties, that time, that age where you get to, free up
Yeah,
yourself in a sense, trying to find yourself within the
yeah.
mix. So I mean, all those things are beneficial, which you probably might not get now with this online schooling.
Yeah, it's something that everybody is going to be dealing with now. I mean, think about I worry about the little kids,
Mm-hmm.
because you have little kids now, preschool and early primary school, who are, yeah, online learning, but a lot of, remember, one of the way that kids learn is from other kids.
Yeah, sometimes good or
They call
bad.
it interpersonal learning.
Mm-hmm.
So the teachers, and they not understanding, but if the friend break it down for them, they will understand. That's a
Mm-hmm.
real thing.
Yeah.
And how are they gonna get that now?
Mm-hmm. And I
How are
kind
they
of get.
gonna learn? How are they gonna learn social skills? Like I observe some of my little cousins, and they now, and it's sad, because now you have this fear. They can't interact with kids. You don't want them to touch. You don't want them to,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to affect their social development. In a couple
Yeah.
of years, we're
And
gonna have that generation, that COVID generation.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
um, like my daughter, she kind of knows interaction, but like her little sisters and stuff like that, who are probably one and two,
Mm.
2 and 3, they actually in start preschool, and they're doing preschool stuff online, so they have interact with much children other than the ones that probably know. So
And
that generation is gonna be severely affected by you know.
and you know what's scary with it too? What I've observed with a number of kids that have been around.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's YouTube, and they have the phones and the tablets and what. Kids are teaching themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't need you to teach them a lot of things. They pick up on their own from a very young age. They know what videos they like, they know who they're following. And like, I had an interaction with a little girl, and it's almost like they have too much information going on. And it's just like when you're talking to them, it's just like, and it's just like word vomit. They
Mm-hmm.
have all this information in their head. They just know all these random facts. Like, did you know so and so and so? I was like, okay, that's interesting. And they will just start going and going and going. And it's good, but it also could be bad
Mm-hmm.
in terms of just how much information they have. And then they might grow, I feel, thinking that they know.
Mm-hmm.
As much as they have the information, you still need guidance from someone who has
Well,
experience.
well, let's bring me to my next question. Now, something I observe about you, through the years, and is you seem to have that family support.
Right.
It's not something I see regularly.
Mm.
You have support, but from not just your parents, and I mean your both parents show up all the time and are always present. Because I know your mom and I know your dad.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you have Gabby and you have, you seem to have a core set of
Of
supporters,
course.
or
Yeah.
and not just fans in the sense of fans of the music, people who actually support the movement. How important is support in the music industry in the sense of development and being able to do? How would you,
But
rate?
you honestly can't do it. I don't. I'm not use the word can't to discourage those who might not have that, because I understand, John. Trust me. I know how fortunate I am to have what I have. All right. You talk about family. That to me is key. Just whether it's just encouragement, whether it's financial help, whether it's in all the little ways that they support you, it is key. Right? My parents and my extended, immediate and extended family, right? Um, and I think the more I develop as an artist, understanding just how important that core, that team that you have around you, how important it is, um, to give you advice, to support you to do stuff, especially when you have a team that could actually help you in your endeavors. Whether it is you have somebody who could help you manage your page, who could help you, type up a letter. Shout out to Gabby who just check out all my letters and all that stuff.
Knives.
Who could help you, stage manage too. Also shout out Gabby. It's very important now, I see, to have a team. Now, it takes time, but to have that team around you that could help you build your brand, and it honestly, it is absolutely totally necessary. And the more I develop and I try to do things on my own, because honestly, a lot of the times I'm alone. I have a circle, but I have a very small circle. Um, but I see now how important that circle is for support, because even when you go to my show, more than half is family and friends. Guarantee. A lot of them family who I do not see. Or half of them I don't even really know that well. But they will come just because of my mom, my dad, and they who will reach out to them and they will support. So I'm fortunate in that sense where I have family on both sides. I had family who fly in to come to my show. And I have aunts and cousins who fly to come and see my show.
That's good.
And will buy tickets and help sell tickets. The other next thing, help selling tickets is by yourself. That hard to plan a show. Well, I learned how to plan a show, perform, and sell tickets, and have somebody by the door and somebody helping there back there. Boy, it's a lot. And I learned a lot from my first show, just doing it. I forced myself to do it. Yes, I think it went well, but there's a lot of things I learned where I realized, wow, it still have places where you need help. You need support here and there, little holes where it could be better.
Yeah, I'm a DIY.
Yeah, I know that.
I really love to do it by myself, but I know how difficult that is, and
It's only so far you could go with it.
you can do it yourself, and I understand. So the last show I kind of got help from different aspects too, so it made the work a little smoother.
Right.
So I know how important support is, not just the family level, but you having a team and a circle that understand the goal too. Not just understand what you want out of it at the end of the day. Do you the next question is, do you have issues being labeled as a jazz musician? I know you say you grew up, loving jazz or liking jazz as akin to the classical, and you love blues, but do you mind being labeled just as a jazz musician or a jazz pianist, or even further down the rabbit hole, a calypso jazz
Yeah.
musician?
Well, before I answer that question, first I want to go back to your show, right? Which I must say, I think I've told you this before, but when your last show at Kaiso Blues that I went to, I was really happy with the show and seeing your
Thanks.
progression as an artist. And it just had a vibe, boy. It just had an energy where I felt that, and I like to see that where I feel like, hey, this person figuring it out. Like knowing, and it's again, it's something that comes with time, knowing what it is you're good at. This is because, as somebody said, rightly said, don't be deceived to think that people, even especially with musicians, don't feel that there's any musician that can do everything at the highest level. That's a total lie. Well, there's probably very few, but even those at the high top end, they have weak spots. So a lot of the times you have to find a niche, find what you're good at, find your strength. Even Miles Davis had to find his thing. He realized, all right, oh, they're playing a lot of fast notes, bebop. Yeah, I go down and slow it down. I go and play modes, play melodic. So and at that show I was like, wow, yeah, this is John in his zone, in his space. So props to you. Keep doing your thing.
Thanks, man.
Even
Thanks, Tom.
listening to the EP. I was listening to it again this week,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized we have a lot of similarities in terms of, I don't know. I feel like we very much thinkers and very cerebral and a lot of things. Listen to your songs and comment, the EP is about doing me, doing myself, figuring out myself, and saying F everybody else. And that's kind of where I am headed. And to answer your question, it doesn't really bother me because honestly, jazz has had such a big impact and influence on me. I feel like no matter what I do later on, it will always have some influence. However, I feel like, I don't know, it's weird. Like recently, well, especially during this lockdown period, I know a lot of people had time to really reflect. And I mean, as I say, blessing and a curse. I had a lot of time to really think and evaluate myself. And a lot of ideas started to come to me. There's a lot of things that I would like to do that might surprise a lot of people that wouldn't fall into jazz or the box that I might be put in now. But does it bother me? No. But honestly, as I develop myself and as I figure myself out, I don't know. It's weird. I've been having a desire to connect with more people. Because even at the highest level, I mean, to be honest, jazz is something now that's still kind of very niche. Even at the higher levels, I mean, who are some of the top guys? I mean, it's a few.
Robert,
Hey, Robert, yeah, Robert, Christian
Christian
Scott,
Scott,
Snarky Poppy, Esperanza Spalding, guys like Herbie, and they who still doing it at a high level at the age. Well, how old Herbie is, like 18 now?
all I know is older than me.
Old, right? Since it started. Yeah, even that is very niche. Strangely enough, I do know that it's weird. Like before, I never really used to listen to lyrics and stuff in pop music. I would always listen to instruments because I'm an instrumentalist.
That's one of my questions.
So as I grew older and started to experience things in life, and that's why talking about the college experience. College experience to me was definitely necessary. Growing up in I guess people would still consider Point country, even though Point is not really country, but I guess quiet compared to Port of Spain or even America. Growing up there and growing up very sheltered as an only child, going out on my own and going into the States and the real world in a sense was very much of a shock, and experiencing people, the reality of people, the reality of how harsh people could be, you know, the negative, the bad things that your parents try to shelter you from,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it was necessary. And as you experience those things, you experience heartache, you experience disappointment, you experience fair experience. Well, my album talks about anxiety or touches on anxieties.
Mm-hmm.
Is influenced by that. You start to experience those things, and it's like more I started to realize. I started listening to lyrics of songs and realize the stories and the messages that the old pop music and even some of the current artists now. People like to bash music now, but there's still a lot of good artists out there that
Still
making
a lot of good
real
music.
music. And even some of the pop that people will trash on that I listen to and I look at the visuals and I'm like, shit, that he really
Mm-hmm.
saying something there, that over the poppiness of it, when you really listen to what the person is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of my favorite songs now is Harry Styles, Adore You, you know that one?
I know this song, but
Yeah,
yeah.
but again, like I would listen to that before, and I never really listened to what they're saying. You're like, okay, sing the hook thing, but you really listen. Like, and now I really listen to lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I have experiences, it's like it have more meaning. Whereas before, I was very sheltered. I never really had those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And also being a music nerd in a sense, you're only listening to instruments. Or I listen to that bass line, that groove, that whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Never really listen to lyrics.
Yeah,
Now it's
because
like,
I've always questioned, because I love instrumentals too, but as a
mm,
vocalist and as a singer songwriter, I always find it strange. But why this album don't have at least one song with words now?
right.
Like,
I don't know. I
why?
guess,
And I think I mean, I guess it comes down to the music nerd thing, and
mm,
instrumentalists want to be instrumentalists in a sense.
yeah.
So I always question why jazz musicians didn't do. I mean, you could go for Robert in the
Mm.
sense of doing black radio,
Hip hop, mix it, that,
mix
yeah.
it and that. But he had the trio stuff before.
Okay.
So why don't they call John Boy, or why don't they call this one? And maybe
Well,
make the
but
thing really
as
poppy.
I say, that is something I am. I think that's the direction I'm moving in. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of started to hint at some of the stuff that I would like to work on.
Mm-hmm.
I think my next project would definitely have more vocal stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the next step, hopefully, I mean, I would love to be able to write lyrics and write my own lyrics. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something I'm good at. It's not something I've really had experience doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I have something to say. Now, in jazz, you could express that instrumentally. Through your instrument, people tell stories, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes because it's just something that come out, sometimes you don't really realize the stories that you're telling just on your instrument. Now I really listen to people play
Mm-hmm.
and really hear what they're saying. Like music is a language, is a vocabulary. So you could listen to somebody and hear what they're saying is an
Mm-hmm.
emotion, is a color. And I say everything is connected. Like
You know, you
now,
know, you know who does do that great for me? Christian Scott, as I say that.
oh yeah,
Like,
boy.
like I think he real brilliant at emotion in his horns. Like,
Yeah, and he could play. Christian could play bop and all that stuff, but he could just give you raw emotion. Like I saw him at St. Lucia Jazz in
mm,
2018. Bro, I was just there in front, just like
I would love to see him live though. I would love to see him
yeah.
live, but
I
Christian's.
I went to St. Lucia just to see them. It was the Now Plus Now group, the
Mm-hmm.
choreographer. I just came to see them. Everybody else was good. I just came to see them, and it was
Mm-hmm.
insane. But yeah, it's true. He has a way where he doesn't need to play a lot of notes.
Mm-hmm.
You feel every note that he plays, and that's something that comes with time. I'm trying to remember who is the musician that said it. It takes a long time to sound like you on the
Mm-hmm.
instrument. Cause
Yes.
you had to learn the instrument, analyze people, learn the licks and whatever. But it's like it takes a long time to sound like you.
Even as a vocalist, it took me years to get to where John is, or
And that's what I said. I realized that I was like, yeah, this is
yeah.
John. This is not anybody else trying to sound like somebody. This is me.
Mhm.
And that takes time.
And as we were talking about calypso jazz,
Mm.
what does Clive Zander mean to you? Like, what when you hear the name Clive Zander, what does that invoke? What does that mean to you?
Well, yeah, Clive is the godfather. you know, innovator. There's a lot of things that I would do that sometimes you don't even realize where it come from.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's again with music, these things, the influence just travels and it flows and music is free. That's why sometimes some of the things I see now, it's very scary, yeah? Especially with some of these legal battles you see with copyright infringement and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Because people they will tell you, the great musicians steal. The good ones borrow and the good ones steal. And it's a scary thing because the influence that music has on you, it is a lot of times subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even realize these things are influencing you. Um, whether it be in music or I mean, even the way we speak, John, we speak very musically as our Caribbean people. We Trinidadians particularly, we speak very musical, and it comes out in our music. And yes, I understand the need for copyright, but it sometimes it's taken so far where it's like, how could you copyright
Because
a, a, a chord? I don't know, or like a
I
progression or like a feel.
I was listening to Snarkish today,
Right.
right? And the main line, it sounds familiar. I don't know. It
Yeah,
sounds.
it's familiar, and it comes from all over the place. Look, I didn't even realize until when I was finishing the album because Shadow Dance on the album,
Shadow Dance is the next one out that sounded. That
Shadow
means I was
Dance,
trying to invoke Shadow. I'm assuming.
Shadow, right? So it's a mixture of bassman, pom pom pidi pom,
Mm-hmm.
pom 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 pim pa da da. That's it. Kind of came from there, and
Mm-hmm.
then I never realized, John, until recently, that it sounds like Ray Holman.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte Street. If you listen to Charlotte Street, I mean, there are elements of it in it. Did I
Mm-hmm. Purpose.
intentionally say, ah, boy, I want it? No.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at the time that's what I was listening to. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I would have started listening to Ray Holman in my formative years as well in secondary school. I would have wrote that song, the main part of it, when I was in secondary school. Actually,
Okay.
That's one of the first songs I wrote years
Interesting.
ago. So I don't even know when that. And it's only when I sit down and I was like, but this thing song, and people pick up on it. Even when Nigel Campbell wrote his review, he brought up Ray Holman, and
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about that. So where's the line? Where does it end? Where does stealing start? Where's borrowing, copyright? I don't know. It's a weird question, but it's scary because music has an influence, and it's subconscious and it's I don't know, boy. It's a touchy thing for me because we need that. We just feed off of energy. We just
Mm-hmm.
feed off of vibe. We just feed off of little things, and we pick it up and we create our own.
And for me, as a hip hop connoisseur, or a hip hop
That's the
like
next
person who
thing,
was
man.
who into Dilla and into sampling, like I sample a
Sampling
lot.
is the core of it. So how do you?
I sampling because there is a Clive Zander song that I sampled once. Never really
Mm,
released it. I think it was
mm.
Oshun or one of the
Ocean,
old.
yeah, Ocean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have a hip hop beat I made with it.
Ogun, not Ocean.
Ogun, Ogun,
Ogun, yeah.
Ogun. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That one. And I was like, and I know I could approach him to use it because he has given me that kind of energy where
But
he
then
wants to work.
that's the next thing too. That's how Orisha chant, not so? Or is that
Mm,
melody
yeah,
his? I don't know.
yeah,
If
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
chant, it might be public domain. So you have to find out
Probably.
that maybe talk to him and find out Because
Mm-hmm.
if the melody, no, the sample, if you sample the recording, then yeah, it will have
Yeah,
some
definitely.
copyright there. But
Yes,
the
yeah.
melody might be public domain because that's
Public domain.
a spiritual chant.
Our research account, yeah.
Yeah.
So, so now off of the music, I mean, I'm not really off, but from
But mhm.
observation, I realize you're kind of exploring different facets of your spirituality and
Mhm.
understanding life and self and that kind of thing. Can
Mhm.
you, in a sense, elaborate on like your search or your journey thus far spiritually?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have no, I can share. For me, I would have grown up in a very Catholic upbringing, and Catholic household, family, going to church most of my formative years. I at a very young age, I became very self-aware. I can't remember exactly what age, but I remember at a young age realizing. I mean, I would have always, and it's so weird. It's like you learn about the Bible, you learn about all these things real young, and it becomes part of you.
Mm-hmm.
So ingrained in you because from small you learn to say prayers before you go and sleep. You have little Bible books you read, you know. You go to Bible school. You
Mm-hmm.
do first communion at a young age. You learn all these things about the faith. But as you get older, you start to really question what it is and try to understand what you believe. And I remember at a very young age, becoming aware. I was like, I'm gonna die one day. you know? I remember having that revelation. It's like, okay, what's gonna happen when I die? And it's like, yeah, well, okay, you're a Christian, you learn well. Either you go to heaven, you go to hell. I was like, okay. So where does that leave me? Where does that, I mean, you're going to church, but do you really, at that age, at like we say 8, 9, 10, do you really believe what it's like it's something that you're taught at a young age. So it's like I started to question, what do I really believe? And then I thought about hell, and you're taught about that, and then you think about eternity, you tell you the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain I couldn't really wrap my head around that. And honestly, I got really scared. At a young age, I got really scared, unknowing, realizing, okay, I'm gonna die. Maybe I should get more serious in this church thing. And I started to take it serious, where it's like, okay, I wanna go to church, I wanna, you know, pay attention in church. And I would have been fortunate to have a very dynamic priest at the time, Father Trevor Nattersing,
Mm-hmm.
who in for the Catholics who would most likely know Father Trevor, he is not the usual Catholic priest. He's very much out there. He's the first priest I see singing and praising and talking in tongues and very dynamic and very raw. He giving it as it is. He telling you so and so. Not the normal for a Catholic upbringing. And that was interesting to me. That was very interesting to me. I would have experienced things in the church, call it supernatural, things that I can't explain in a logical way, well, at the time, that um made me commit to the faith at a young age. So I would have, at the time, around Form 3, Form 4, became very much involved in the church. I would have done a Life with the Spirit seminar with them, and became very involved in church. Formed our own prayer group in the
Mm-hmm.
school, youth groups. I started to preach. some of you who might know my background, I started to preach
Father
in
Haig.
school. Father Hagley. I mean, yeah, those are so many jokes. Those are so many jokes, you know. They say we're gonna become priests. Me and my cousins actually were involved. They say we turn priests. Say all kind of jokes, you know. And I would have spent a lot of time and energy behind. I became very much serious about church. But the thing about me is I have always been a thinker, and I have always been somebody who, if something don't make sense to me, I need to understand it in its entirety for me to accept it. Even in school, like I used to get real beams of teachers, because if you teach us a topic, right, and then we move from A to B to C, but you see B, I follow where you're trying to tell me there, I would literally stop the entire class. And teachers didn't like me for that. I'll be like, no, I need to understand this. Because they would tell you, don't worry about this. Let me and I was like, no. How you get that? How you arrive at that? And that's kind of how my brain works. And if I don't understand that, I can't move on. And that started to happen to me as I progressed in the faith. Is like there were things that I couldn't really explain that didn't make sense to me. Through my experiences, through observing people around me, through my own personal experiences and struggles, it's like there's a piece missing then, or you know, that nobody could really explain.
So in a sense, you're trying to find the piece.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that piece, but it's like how to do it, because within the construct of the faith is just like, well, you need to have faith, you need to believe, you know, you need to believe.
But for the logical mind or the
logical mind,
or
how do
the
you believe?
scientific
Yeah, how do
mind.
you believe what you cannot see? And that became a struggle because there were things that I would have witnessed and seen that I could not explain personally, you know. But then there were other aspects of the faith that didn't make sense to me, like even whatever. I'll talk about it. Even just like the whole concept of hell and punishment made no sense to me. As I really started to think about it, the concept of Adam and Eve made no sense to me. Original sin made no sense to me in terms of people being punished, like us being made to
Sins of the
pay
father,
for sins of the father kind of way. And that was the direction that I went for a while. I was really I was still in it, questioning it. But as I got older, it's almost like, well, and worse said, once I went to Berkeley, I kind of made a subconscious and then a conscious decision to give up the faith, to find my own truth. And yeah, I would have given it up. And it was weird. Another aspect of that journey was me, in terms of finding myself, was my identity, who I was. It during that period was kind of called into question at its core, was kind of shaken, because on one side, my two core facets of what I identified with was music and religion. So I shifted now into this whole new environment in Berkeley, and it's like I started to question whether I even want to do music, because this thing real difficult and it costing so much. And it's like, how am I gonna make back money as a musician anyways? So there's that side of it. And then there's the spiritual side where it's like I no longer identify with my faith. So the question is now, what do I believe? If I no longer identify as a musician or as a Christian, then who am I? Who is Adan? And that really messed with me for a long time. And I mean, herein lies again part of the inspiration for the album Insomnia, which you all should buy online, iTunes, Amazon, all streaming platforms, But part of it was that it was that anxiety, that uncertainty of what do I believe? Who am I? What is it all about? And honestly, it took me to a place where it became kind of dark in a sense, because it's almost like, well, there's no point. Because the next thing that you said about, I mean, John was suffering. That's the next part of it I couldn't really understand.
Why good people suffering?
Why good people suffering? And it took me a long time to really understand that concept, because I felt as if Christians and a lot of religions use suffering. They use God in a way just to explain things that they can't explain. So they would say that
the God excuse.
Well, I guess that's God's plan, or God have a plan. But
and when is the opposite is the devil to blame.
And then that was the next thing. The next thing is all bad things caused by the devil, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
So I started to question that, and it's like, I was gonna say something. Suffering. I was trying to understand, and then the whole point of what is the point of life then? Is it that because, I mean, in the Christian sense, they say, I come that Jesus say, I come they may have life and have it to the fullest, but what does that really mean? What does it mean to have a full life? When a lot of the things that let's put it this way. In the Catholic sense, and this is not me bashing the Catholic faith, because I've come to a place of acceptance of all religions in a sense, right? And I've grown up Catholic, so my foundation is Catholicism. So I could never really. I have my issues with the history of the church and certain practices, but at the core of the faith, there's truth, right? So the question is, what in terms of the path that you're given is, well, either you get married, and these are what they call the sacraments in the faith. You have the sacrament of marriage, you have priesthood, you have religious. You could take religious vows, right? You could become a religious brother, sister, nun. You have single life, right? So they will tell you could be called to a life of chastity or a life of singleness. But what about the in-between people? Because if you ask somebody, the question is like, is everybody called to married life? That's a serious question we had to ask yourself. Is everybody called to be married? I don't know. Is everybody called to live a religious life or to live a single life? I'm not too sure about that. So where is it in between? Where is the? How could you brand somebody as a sinner for doing things that come natural urges, natural things that we as a human, it is just ingrained and is part of your survival in terms of the survival of the species, in terms of sexuality and these things. These are serious topics and questions that I ask yourself. Well, how do you survive? Why do you have those desires? Why is it even there in the first place? And why would you go to hell if you act out on those desires?
So yeah, it's a real deep and it could go way down the rabbit hole if you search long enough.
Yeah.
And I think I reached the place where I think it's George Carlin say he said I no longer care for the result, or like I no longer care for the end, what the end of the story is. We kind of just operating in a space where whatever, is a kind
Right.
of stoicism,
Right.
is a sort of like, I don't care for the end result, you know. I live in my life until, I'm no longer there. And
Yeah.
because, I mean, when you really think of how vast the space is, and if you really look, there's this
The
video called
universe.
10 to the power 10 or something like that, and you kind of spread the universe out by 10 each time, and you could see how big we are and how minute we are, humans, that is. And to
Yeah.
make sense of it all within such a small paradigm or a small, small box as religion, it makes no sense. Because we really, even with our limited senses, I mean, we could only see from a certain range, or we could only hear between 20 hertz and
Perspective is another
perspective.
crazy thing. I
So not
learned
a,
that I learned that in school as well when we looked at perspective in arts,
mm-hmm,
in music and in visual art.
mm-hmm,
And there were some pieces that we looked at that showed you just how bound by perspective you are.
mm-hmm,
And even in understanding the religion and understanding life in general, you are bound by your perspective.
perspective. Yeah.
And unless you are able to shift your perspective and see it from someone else's perspective, you're
Mm-hmm,
stuck.
yeah.
So that was the next thing that made it very difficult for me because I had that kind of a mindset. It was hard for me to accept somebody telling me this is the only way, this
Mm-hmm,
is the truth. And I'm just like, that can't be right because everybody there's truth, but there's also subjective truth in a sense where people go through experiences in life where they do things that is their truth based on
mm-hmm,
their life, their experience. And how do you tell that person they're wrong?
mm-hmm, yeah.
But as you say, the conversation is a deep one. For me, I kind of went to a very dark place, honestly,
Mm-hmm,
in questioning everything. And I guess as I started to get into more philosophy and psychology and things, I guess you would call it deconstruction.
mm-hmm,
I kind of started to deconstruct everything. So I deconstruct my beliefs, I deconstruct myself, I deconstruct everything. And then it took me to a kind of nihilistic place where
mm-hmm,
it's almost like, well, there's no meaning, there's no point.
mm-hmm.
And obviously you get into shows like Rick and Morty,
Yeah, I
which
realize. I realize. I was going to answer that.
um, you get into shows like Rick and Morty that ask these kind of questions, and
Mm-hmm,
even another one that I really like is BoJack. I've always
mm-hmm.
talked about BoJack. A lot of people will be like, "That show's so weird." It's like, bro,
Nah, but
that's one of the realest shows I've ever watched.
mm-hmm.
It's very dark, but it's funny. I think it works because it's a cartoon. It works, but
And how it ended, it kind of tell the story from the beginning, like he was going through this journey and he was in this dark place, and he was
yeah,
just point out enlightenment to the end where he kind of understood
you
what
understood
is
what it was about.
what it was
Yeah,
about.
life is a journey,
Mm-hmm,
and you're trying to understand. It's coming to understand yourself
mm-hmm,
and people around you and how we connected. And I relate to that so much. Like that show really connected with me in that sense. And I started to in deconstructing everything and getting to a place where it almost seems like life is pointless in a sense.
mm-hmm.
I remember there was an episode where they talked about, the universe could seem meaningless and random and there's all this chaos, but all that really matters is this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right now. I am having
Right
this
now,
conversation
any
with
second.
you. This second, right now, all that matters is right now, what I
And
do right now.
I learned. Well, I mean, I always understood the concept, but I learned that concept sometime last year. I was covering an event, a mental health event
Yeah.
for probably age, and this yoga instructor, I forget it's Troy Hadid, I can't remember his name, but one of those Hadids. And he said he asked a guy in the audience, what's the most important thing to you now? And the guy started talking about his son and making sure his son, I said, no, the most important thing to you is right now, this moment now, like this second.
Right
There's
now.
no when you start to focus, we start to focus a lot on the future, and we start to focus a lot on the past,
Past.
and it kind of it kind of using up stuff that we can't really control. We can't control the past, and we can't control the future. So all we could do is focus on the right now and the now, and that kind of change how I deal with stress in a sense. You know, there's a lot of things,
and that is what really and truly causes anxiety, which is something that I talk about, and I will be talking about coming up very soon. I'll be doing a segment like this, talking about anxiety, but that basically is what it is. You are not present. You are in the future thinking about something that hasn't happened, or you're thinking about the past, something that you did, but more so the future, and it creates this uncertainty, and it affects you mentally and it affects you physically.
Yeah. So and we've been here like an hour and 20 minutes. So
bro, I could talk if you want to talk, we could talk.
I know. NBA finals starting tonight.
Boy, what time? 9 o'clock. Well, inside.
9 o'clock.
Inside.
So who we backing? We Heat Nation, or we supporting the purple and yellow?
I will. I had to support the Lakers this year. I don't really have.
Are you a LeBronist or a Jordanist, or do you subscribe to that goat?
I still have a affinity for Jordan, especially because I would have grown up at an age when Jordan was at his peak. Jordan was it. In that, well, for me, it would be more the later 90s run, so 96, 97, 98.
The last repeat.
That last repeat, I would have been very much aware of. Obviously, grew up on Space Jam, Jordan sneakers stuff. So Jordan is for us the GOAT in a sense, and I have a newfound level of respect for him after watching that documentary Last Dance. You hear what that man say? That man, boy, Jordan is something else, boy. Jordan say he used to create stories about his opponent mentally. And he would sell that story to people. He make up a story about a man, how he tell them something. And after a year later, he said that never happened. I was like, what?
That's to create that warrior mindset.
And people will say that's crazy, but no, that is what it takes. That is what it takes mentally to be at that level. As good as he was, if he didn't have that mindset, the kind of challenges he faced, you have to self-create that motivation. And that's the next thing with the whole mental aspect, is that you have to create that. The man would create that. Then you saw that scene where he was like, where he got emotional, and he was like, if you don't want to play that way, don't play that way. And the man, you could tell the man was getting, I was like,
he was really passionate about winning.
He was,
and it wasn't just about, it wasn't about basketball or golf.
It wasn't about basketball. It was about his father. It was about proving himself. It was about all those things. Like he was always trying to prove himself. And again, about your environment when you're growing, he always compared himself to his brother. So he was always trying to compete with his brother and outdo his brother, and he was battling for the affection of his father. So those things, it's so crazy how those things could drive you. And the man just had this single-minded, like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just not just beat you, I'm going to destroy you. Yo, the man was insane. Like, he would rile up people just to have them at their best. Because he knew I could beat you at your best. I don't want you at your worst. I want you at your best. So you have no excuse. That is a next level type shit. So I would still say Jordan, but you can't knock LeBron for the things that he's accomplished.
No, he's definitely I think he's the greatest of this generation in the sense of that close to that mindset. I mean, Kobe also had the Mamba mentality, but this generation's sports basketball mentality, even being all around, all around knowledge of the game. I'm not the biggest fan of the fan club. I think that would be
Right.
my. I'm not a big fan of the fan club. So I try to always back the person that he played against, kind of thing. But
Right.
I respect who he is as a basketball player. I don't
Definitely.
respect the fans.
He's changing. He's actually changing the whole definition of what it means to be the greatest. 'Cause remember, before Jordan, there was a different conversation in terms of what it means to be the best. Then Jordan came and he changed that. And then you have Kobe kind of following that fashion. But LeBron is changing the whole discussion because statistically wise, in terms of just how many times he's been to the finals, the fact that he's done it on many different teams. This is going to be his third team if he wins this championship. The length of time he's playing at this level for.
And it looks like he's going to be there for a little while because.
And he still has years in him at that level. And then even once he starts to decline, he's not going to finish. He's going to change. He could change his whole play style and start to play a different style. And play for longevity, and because he's trying to chase that start to have that six, not a six, but to highest top scorer. And he has to play at a level for a while in order to pass Kareem. But he can do it. Like if he continues at this pace, he will pass Kareem. But he has to, barring injuries and stuff, he could do it. So I would still say I would back the Lakers also because of Kobe dying this year. I think, honestly, if you look at his demeanor, you saw his demeanor after he won that game, is like, he is not satisfied. He is, that last, when he take over in that fourth quarter, I already know, and especially versus the Heat, his old team.
It could be a nice series. It could be a nice
series. I think they're gonna have the edge though.
I like Bam. I like Bam, and I like Jimmy buckets. So I cannot back any underdogs, but it's going to be a good series. So to kind of wind down, we talk about like getting into relationships and stuff like that. Is it difficult as a creative and a person like you who's constantly thinking and constantly relationships and being a musician? Do you think it can work? Or you gotta get somebody who understands you as a musician or understands you as a
well,
can you have a relationship with a banker, somebody who far from that creative?
I don't know. I think it's good. I think once a person has an understanding of your field and what it is you're involved in, it could work. It doesn't have to be another musician and a creative. Obviously, it's good if you're with somebody like that to understand what it is. But it could also have cons, I guess, too. When you're both in the same field, it could end up that y'all kind of clash, or that y'all, because it's so demanding, you could grow apart in a sense. So it all have pros and cons to everything. But definitely it's a challenge, especially focusing on a career, especially now being a musician or creative. You have to do so many things, as you would know. You're a do-it-yourself type guy. And to be a musician now, you're performing, you gotta be able to produce, you gotta be able to mix, you gotta be able to do graphics, you gotta manage your social media. What again?
Everything possible.
You wanna be the everything guy. So how do you manage that in a relationship? It's very difficult.
How do you balance being, Adan Hagley, the musician, the teacher, the son, how do you create that balance where everything works? Have you find that here?
No, honestly, I have periods where I kind of have things together, and then I have periods where it's like it's too much. Generally, as I say, I have my mind that's always going, and so obviously, anxiety is something that I struggle with. I've been very open about that. So in this year, I've had to really learn to slow down. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of thankful in a way, not to sound, okay, I know people are dying and it's a negative thing, but I really had the chance to slow down over lockdown. And it's a practice. It's something that I had to practice and learn to slow myself down and to take things one at a time. Because most of the times I'm thinking about 10 things at a time. Okay, I do this, I have a class to get ready for, I'm doing the show, I'm trying to organize this thing, I'm trying to promote my album. You have to kind of set goals and set periods for your different goals. Luckily, as a teacher, it's a bit flexible because, I mean, you have holidays, you have the days you could take, you have weekends. So you could kind of flex, and I could set up a schedule around my school schedule. So I would usually plan my big drives and performances around periods when I don't have school. So during holiday time, during August vacation, that is when I push in because I have the time. I could do it then. I don't really like to do my own stuff during the term because it is a lot. It's something is gonna struggle. Something is gonna suffer between the show, between my career and my job. Something will suffer. Or your own self. I remember seeing like a triangle in terms of that balance, social life, career, sleep. Pick two.
Pick two, man.
Pick two. That's always a struggle. Something will suffer if you focus on your career and your job, and you're just not going to be sleeping. Then you're going to physically be drained.
And
so it's always a juggling act. It's always like, all right, let me see how I could here. I will take a period of rest. Okay, I'm taking this week off. Catch myself. So you had a schedule your relaxation. You had a schedule your different goals. So this next 3 months I'm focusing on this project. Right? And obviously I try to schedule it around school. So I say, right, I'll do this at the start of the term. That's when I still a little free. I don't want anything at the end of my term or during midterms. I don't, because it's gonna be crazy. I have exams to crack, I have this to do. It don't make sense. I'm gonna be pulling out the hair that I don't have in my head. And I'm gonna pull out my beard, right? So yeah, you had to be sensible in that way. So I try to do it that way where I plan things around my schedule. I try to take it one as I've been learning. It's an ongoing process. Take it one thing at a time. I cannot do everything. I could only do 1 or 2 things maybe at a time. But then, I mean, adding the relationship into that is a challenge, is a struggle. It's not easy. Props to the musicians out there that are doing it. Is hard. I mean, not just music, but any career. To juggle that career, I have the utmost respect for mothers and fathers who are there juggling that and then come home. I mean, at least right now I don't have children, but how do you do that and then come home and you have children to say about it? I don't know, man. Honestly, I still trying to wrap my brain around that. Obviously, parents will tell you, well, you just get used to it, you'll figure it out. And part of me believes that, but part of me also doesn't believe. I feel like
probably don't want to deal with it either.
you could, I don't know, you could share how that is for you. I don't know.
I ain't figured out the balance yet. I mean, I ain't figured out the balance yet. Having to be a father and having to be, all these things. And I think I posted a memory the other day or from Facebook. Like I'm tired trying to be everything now. Sometimes you just want to let go and just be just one thing for the day. Just being one thing for the day. You don't want to be all these things that you try to achieve when the day come. And you feel like you have all these things, people to please, and have all these jobs to fulfill and all these purposes. And some days you just want to be in nowhere. You just don't want to think. You don't want to, and I think a lot, and I guess, again, it caused some anxiety because I was thinking about the future and I was thinking about maybe I should have done this in the past, and the real struggle is actually trying to live in the
in the
moment,
present.
and that is my
Yeah,
biggest struggle right now. So living
yeah,
in
and
in the now.
that's where the mental aspect of it is. As I say, for me, that has become one of my key focus in the past year, opening that conversation about mental health, mental wellness,
Mm-hmm.
um, because we all struggle with it in some shape or form, you know, or at some
Mm-hmm.
period in your life will experience it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my initiative is changing that conversation, where it's not like when you talk about it's like, well, what are you talking about? He mad, he have
Mm-hmm.
problems. It's like, no, like this life, a lot of it is mental. The majority of it is mental. Your mental toughness, your resilience, how
Mm-hmm.
much you can focus on your goals and your tasks. How well can you, as you say, live in that present moment
Mm-hmm.
and become self-aware? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where my journey kind of took me. You know, we start touching on the spirituality side of it. Is that, you know, I reached a point where even saying that life was meaningless started to also not make sense to me, because it's like, wait, no, that don't make sense neither.
No.
We can't just be here just existing and
Or
have
we
no point.
or we could be.
Or we could, I mean,
We
yeah,
could
but it
be.
must have some kind of
I mean,
reason or
mm,
plan in a way. Because when you look at the universe, there's a order, but I like to call it ordered chaos.
mm,
It's like chaotic, but it seems random. But then I started to experience where things were connected in this weird way that I couldn't explain.
mm, yeah.
And we are connected, and everything is connected on a universal level, on a human level, on a subatomic level is the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. How
Mm-hmm.
the hell are you explaining that?
As above, so below. You know.
As
So it's.
above, so below. So those kind of concepts, looking into alchemy and looking into other religious expressions,
Mm-hmm.
really came into me for me. You know, I started to look into Hinduism and other time. I mean, you grew up around Hindus in Trinidad. I mean, God, we real blessed. We really grew up in a place where we exposed to all kind of cultures and stuff, and we still have this kind of clannish mentality where we just stick to what we know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much, like over the past few months, I learned so much about Hinduism that I never knew. And
Mm-hmm.
you just grow up thinking about things in a particular way,
And
this
not and not
narrow-minded way. And it's
and
like,
not just Hinduism in a sense, but how close and linked Hinduism is to African spirituality, and
to
how
African spirit, yeah,
how the
Orisha, yeah.
how the rituals and the stuff like that. So, but this has been a real great talk, and it's
Yeah.
we could go for hours, but
We need to, we should probably have a next one.
we should have a next one. And I was kind of worried about, because I mean we never really, I mean we have been friends, because I mean when I came back from Berkeley, I think I was one of the first people that you gigged with. I cried a big
Not one of the first, the first.
I cried a big one up here. It was kind of a one of those guerrilla type
Yeah, boy.
scenes.
Yeah, boy.
But no,
Stress. Going on the
yeah,
boat, going on the
yeah,
flights. Oh,
yeah. You know what I mean? So, but we never really had these kind of conversations. So I was kind of
yeah.
worried. What could talk to Eden about? What kind of questions I go ask and that kind of thing. But I'm glad we had this conversation. But
Yeah.
we going into.
I honestly really cherish these kind of conversations. I
Mm-hmm,
more do well in smaller groups,
mm-hmm,
closer impact. And again, environment is key for me. So I generally, people, I'm very approachable. I'm quiet. But if you
mm-hmm.
approach me and we have meaningful conversation, I will engage. But
Yeah,
it's weird. But we could, bro, we could have this. I like this vibe. I like this
yeah.
vibe.
And that's I guess that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, because I think a lot of people just deny musicians and artists the ability to speak. And I mean,
Mm.
it's always okay. What music? This music you do now? We're going to do the next 10 years, and this kind of end the
Yeah.
conversation. So I think we have a lot to say outside of just the usual. So yeah, thanks for
Before we
having.
go, could I plug my own segment coming
Yeah,
up?
yeah, do your thing.
So I'm doing a series on mental health awareness for my birthday. So my birthday is on the 11th of October. I'll be 30.
All right, I just know.
And that weekend, I'm going to premiere my Insomniac Talks, talking about mental health awareness and different topics, like relating to mental health, and how it ties into music and the arts as well.
Mm.
And I'm also going to be streaming my concert from last year. I've been trying to put that together since last year. I've had some hiccups and struggles with that, but I finally have the full package. So I'm, gonna do a little throwback and stream the show for my birthday on my Facebook page, and I'm gonna be releasing some content soon. So look out for that Insomniac Talks on the 10th and 11th of October. And
Nice.
yeah, you can find me on Adan Hagley Music, all platforms. Check out the album Insomnia. Right? Buy, don't steal. Streaming is cool and all, but we don't really make much money from streaming. So if you can purchase it, that'll be good.
Next time we go talk. Next time we go talk about the numbers and music.
Boy,
There's a whole
yeah,
conversation.
we can have a lot of conversations. I
Mhm.
I really enjoyed this, John. Thanks for having me.
No scene, no scene.
And we gonna look out for the first round tonight with the basketball. See how it goes.
All right. Well, nice having you.
All
We
right,
go
man.
link.
Peace.
We go link.
Take care.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
man.
So yeah. Thanks for coming. Thanks for tuning in. All those who logged on and commented and viewed the stream. So next week I'm going to have someone on. I'm still trying to confirm or the person trying to make that arrangement, but it's not gonna be a musician, so it's gonna be interesting. So thanks for tuning in to the things then. Peace.